All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving deep into some seriously mind-bending stuff.
Oh, I love mind-bending stuff. What are we tackling today?
We're going to be exploring the psychology of leadership.
Okay, I'm intrigued already.
And get this, we're looking at it all through the lens of Machiavelli.
Machiavelli. That's a pretty big name to drop right off the bat.
Oh, absolutely. And we're doing this deep dive based on a really interesting YouTube video I found.
Oh, what's the video?
It's called Be Respected, Be Feared, but Never Hated Machiavelli.
Wow, okay, so right there in the title we're getting that Machiavellian vibe.
Right, and it's from a channel called Psychotic, which I thought was pretty fitting.
Psychotic, huh? That definitely sets the tone.
Yeah, it kind of throws traditional leadership advice out the window.
So, no, be a good listener and empower your team kind of stuff.
Not exactly. This video really digs into the darker, more, I guess you could say, pragmatic aspects of leadership.
I mean, Machiavelli wasn't exactly known for his warm and fuzzy approach.
Not at all. But that's what makes this so interesting, right? Because he was onto something about human nature and how power really works.
Okay, so how does this video, how does it frame Machiavelli's ideas for a modern audience?
Well, one of the first things that jumped out at me was this concept of respectful fear.
Respectful fear, huh? That sounds like an oxymoron.
Right. But the video argues that it's actually the foundation of effective leadership.
So, not love, not popularity.
Nope. Fear. But not like tyrannical, fear-mongering kind of fear.
More like, I don't know, strategic fear.
Exactly. It's about using fear as a tool to command respect and prevent betrayal.
I mean, when you think about it, fear can be a powerful motivator, right?
Yeah.
It makes people think twice before they act.
Absolutely. The video uses this really intense analogy. They say, fear is engraved in memory like a scar that never disappears.
Okay, yeah, I can see how that would stick with you.
Right. It definitely makes you think about the long-term impact of your actions as a leader.
So we're not talking about being cruel or anything, are we?
No, not at all. It's more about understanding human nature and wielding authority in a way that discourages people from messing with you.
I think the key here is that word respectful. It's about inspiring fear, but also admiration, maybe even a bit of awe.
It's a delicate balance, for sure. But the video argues that it's a balance worth striving for.
It definitely challenges a lot of the conventional wisdom around leadership, doesn't it? Like, we're always told to be kind, approachable, empathetic.
And this video is basically like, yeah, sure, those things are important, but don't be afraid to show a little teeth every now and then.
There's that fear element again.
Right, because at the end of the day, would you rather be seen as good or as strong?
That's a good question, and a tough one to answer.
Yeah, the video really makes you think about the trade-offs.
Because if you're perceived as weak, you open yourself up to all kinds of problems.
Exactly. People might try to take advantage of you, or they might not take you seriously.
And that's not a good position to be in as a leader.
So it's about finding that balance between kindness and strength.
Right. And the video actually talks about this concept of controlled kindness.
Controlled kindness. What's that?
It's this idea that you don't want to be indiscriminately generous.
Like you're not just handing out favors left and right.
Exactly. You're strategic about it. You use your kindness as a tool, not just a default setting.
So it's about being discerning with your kindness.
Exactly. Because if you're always giving, always bending over backwards, you might be seen as a pushover.
Okay. Yeah, I can see how that could be a problem.
And that goes back to that idea of perceived weakness. If people think they can walk all over you, they probably will.
So we're talking about a different kind of leadership, one that's maybe a bit more calculated?
I think so, yeah. It's about being thoughtful and deliberate in your actions, always with an eye towards maintaining your authority.
It's playing the long game.
Exactly. And that brings us to another key point that the video makes about unpredictability.
Unpredictability. Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, the video argues that one of the worst things a leader can do is become predictable.
Like if people can always guess what you're going to do.
Exactly. If you become a robot, always reacting the same way, people start to lose respect.
They figure they can manipulate you or that you're not really in control.
Right. And they might even get bored.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess predictability could lead to boredom.
And boredom can lead to all sorts of problems like apathy, disengagement, even rebellion.
So how do you combat predictability as a leader?
By throwing in a curveball every now and then, doing something unexpected, going against people's expectations.
So it's about keeping people on their toes.
Exactly. It's about maintaining a certain level of tension, of not letting people get too comfortable.
Video gives this really interesting example of how this works in practice.
Oh, what's that?
They say a leader who always punishes mistakes creates an atmosphere of fear, sure, but also resentment.
Yeah, I can see that.
But a leader who occasionally forgives a mistake, who shows a little mercy, that's the kind of leader who really earns respect.
It's like you're saying, I have the power to punish you, but I'm choosing not to.
Exactly. It shows that you're in control, that you're making conscious choices, not just reacting on autopilot.
And it probably makes people a lot more loyal, too, knowing that you're capable of forgiveness.
Right, because they know they're not just dealing with a heartless machine, they're dealing with a human being.
It makes the whole dynamic a lot more complex, doesn't it? A lot more nuanced.
And that's what I find so fascinating about this whole Machiavellian approach to leadership.
It's not black and white. It's not about following a set of rules.
It's about understanding human psychology and using that understanding to your advantage.
Which, let's be honest, can be a little bit intimidating.
Oh, absolutely. It's not for the faint of heart.
But it's definitely something worth thinking about, whether you're leading a team, a family, or even just yourself.
Well said. So we've talked about respectful fear, we talked about controlled kindness, and we've touched on unpredictability.
But there's so much more to unpack here. Like, how does a leader actually maintain this kind of power? What are the specific strategies and tactics they can use?
That's what we're going to dive into next.
So you were saying there are some specific tactics to maintain that kind of power.
Yeah, let's get into some of these strategies, huh?
Yeah, because, I mean, it's all well and good to talk about
Yeah.
this kind of, like, psychological approach to leadership,
Right.
but how do you actually, put it into practice?
Exactly. And the video gets into some really, really interesting stuff here.
Okay, lay it on me.
Well, one tactic that stood out to me was this idea of strategic silence.
Strategic silence. Okay, that sounds,
Counterintuitive, right?
yeah. I mean, you usually think of leaders as being, charismatic, outspoken, always ready with a quick quip.
Yeah. Always got to be the life of the party.
Right, exactly. But this video is saying, like, hey, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is shut up.
Pretty much. It's about using silence as a way to control the narrative, to create a sense of tension, even a little bit of fear.
Oh, there's that fear again. But, like, how does that actually work? I mean, how do you use silence to your advantage?
Well, think about it. When there's silence, when there's this kind of like void in the conversation, people tend to fill it with their own thoughts.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you mean.
And those thoughts are often, anxieties, insecurities, doubts, all that fun stuff.
So it's like you're planting a seed of uncertainty and letting it grow in people's minds.
Exactly. And that uncertainty can be a very powerful tool because it makes people, it makes them a little bit more malleable, a little bit more willing to follow your lead.
I guess it's kind of like if you don't give them all the answers, they have to come to you for guidance, right?
Right. And that puts you in a position of authority.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this works, but it seems risky too, right? Like what if the silence just makes people, freak out or tune out?
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act. You have to know when to break the silence, when to offer some reassurance, some guidance.
So it's not about being silent all the time. It's about knowing when to use silence strategically.
Exactly. It's like any powerful tool. You got to use it with care and precision.
It's like a chef with a really sharp knife.
Oh, I like that.
You can use it to create a masterpiece, but you can also really hurt yourself if you're not careful.
Perfect analogy. And speaking of using things with precision, the video also talks about the importance of praise.
Praise. Okay, that's not exactly Machiavellian, is it?
Not in the traditional sense, no. But the way they talk about praise in this video is really interesting.
Go on.
They say that praise shouldn't be like this constant stream of compliments.
Okay, yeah, I get that. Like if you're always praising people, it kind of loses its meaning.
Right. It just becomes background noise.
So what's the alternative?
The video suggests that praise should be used sparingly and with a very specific purpose.
Oh, okay, like a reward for good behavior.
Yeah, exactly. It's about reinforcing the behaviors that you want to see more of.
So you're not just saying good job all the time. You're saying good job on this specific thing because it demonstrates this specific quality that I value.
Right. It's about being very intentional with your praise and making sure that it's meaningful.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because if you only praise people when they've truly earned it, it makes the praise that much more valuable, right?
Exactly. It shows that you're paying attention, that you're not just throwing around empty words.
And it probably motivates people to, to keep up the good work.
Right. Because they know that their efforts are being recognized and appreciated.
It's almost like training a dog, You give them a treat when they do something good to reinforce the behavior.
Oh, that's a good one. Positive reinforcement in action.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess the same principle applies to leadership, right?
Right.
You want to encourage the behaviors that benefit the team and discourage the ones that don't.
Right. And praise can be a really effective way to do that.
Okay, so we've got strategic silence and precise praise. What other Machiavellian tricks does this video have up its sleeve?
Well, this next one might surprise you. The video talks about the importance of managing rivals.
Managing rivals. Okay, now that's interesting because usually, the advice is to eliminate your rivals, to squash the competition.
Right. Get rid of anyone who might threaten your position.
Yeah, survival of the fittest, right?
But this video takes a different approach. They say that it can actually be beneficial to let your rivals exist, at least for a while.
Whoa. Okay, that's a bold strategy. Why would you want to do that?
Well, the idea is that if you let your rivals play their hand, they'll eventually make a mistake, they'll overreach, and then their downfall will serve as a lesson to everyone else.
So it's like a cautionary tale.
Exactly. It's like saying, see what happens when you try to challenge my authority.
And you don't even have to lift a finger because they self-destruct.
Right. It's a very Machiavellian way of maintaining control.
But it seems risky too, right? Like what if your rival actually succeeds?
That's always a possibility, of course. But the video argues that if you're a truly effective leader, you should be confident enough in your own abilities to take that risk.
Okay, so it's like you're so good you're not even worried about the competition.
Right. And it also plays into that idea of unpredictability that we talked about earlier. If people see that you're not afraid of a little competition, it makes them wonder what else you're capable of.
It keeps them guessing, which, like we said, is a good thing.
Exactly. But of course, managing rivals effectively requires another key skill, and that's observation.
Ah, yes. That whole idea of being a keen observer of human behavior, of constantly gathering information and analyzing the motivations of those around you.
Right. You got to know your opponents, their strengths, their weaknesses, their ambitions, all of it.
It's almost like being a detective, piecing together clues to figure out who's doing what and why.
It's a mental game, for sure. And that brings us to another really important point that the video makes about crisis management.
Crisis management. Okay, yeah, that's a huge part of leadership.
I mean, let's be real. No leader gets through their career without facing some kind of crisis.
It's inevitable.
Right.
Yeah.
And how you handle those crises, how you respond under pressure, that's what really defines your leadership.
I mean, it's easy to be a good leader when everything's going smoothly.
Right. It's when the ship starts sinking that you really see what a captain's made of.
Exactly. So what does this video say about crisis management?
Well, they emphasize the importance of staying calm, cool, and collected, even when everything around you is falling apart.
Okay, that makes sense. You don't want to panic and make things worse.
Right. It's about projecting an image of strength and composure, even if you're feeling like totally freaking out on the inside.
Because if the leader panics, everyone else panics.
Exactly. It's about being the rock, the steady presence that people can rely on in a storm.
And that goes back to that idea of respectful fear, right? If people see that you can handle a crisis without losing your cool, it reinforces their belief in your competence.
Right. It's like saying, look, I got this. You can trust me.
So it's not just about managing the crisis itself. It's about managing people's perceptions of how you're handling the crisis.
Right. It's a psychological game, just like everything else in leadership.
This is all starting to make me look at leadership in a whole new way.
I know, right? It's pretty mind-blowing.
It's like we've been given this secret playbook on how to, manipulate people and get what you want.
Well, I wouldn't say manipulate necessarily.
Okay, maybe not manipulate, but definitely, influence people, right?
Yeah.
To get them to see things your way.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
And it's a little bit unsettling, honestly. Are we really supposed to be this calculated in our interactions with others?
I think that's a question that each individual leader has to answer for themselves.
I guess so. But it's definitely something worth thinking about, isn't it?
Absolutely. Because whether we like it or not, this is how the world works. Power dynamics are at play in every interaction, every relationship.
So maybe the key takeaway here isn't to become a Machiavellian mastermind, but to at least be aware of these dynamics, to understand the game that's being played, even if we choose not to play it ourselves.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, right? And the more we understand about human psychology and the nature of power, the better equipped we are to navigate the world, whether we're leading a team, a family, or even just ourselves.
It's funny. I've been thinking about this whole Machiavellian thing, and I can't help but feel a little bit, I don't know, conflicted.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Well, on the one hand, it's like, wow, this is some seriously powerful stuff, right? Like if you really understand these principles, you can achieve some pretty amazing things.
Yeah, but
But then on the other hand, it's like, wait a minute, is this ethical? Like, are we really supposed to be using these tactics on other people?
yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Like, where do we draw the line between strategy and manipulation?
Exactly, because some of the stuff we've talked about, it can get pretty, I don't know, cutthroat.
It's definitely not for everyone.
No, it's not. And it makes you wonder, like, what kind of person does it take to actually be a Machiavellian leader?
Right. Like, do you have to be kind of ruthless to really succeed?
I mean, Machiavelli himself wasn't exactly known for his compassion.
No, he was all about, like, the ends justify the means.
Right, and that can be a slippery slope.
Definitely.
Mm.
So I think the key here, and this is something that the video kind of touches on, is that you have to have a strong moral compass.
Oh, absolutely. Like, you got to know what your values are, what you're willing to compromise on, and what you're not.
Because otherwise, you can easily get lost in this game of power and manipulation.
Yeah, and you might end up becoming the kind of leader that you never wanted to be.
Exactly. So the takeaway here isn't necessarily that we should all become like master manipulators.
Right.
It's more about being aware of these dynamics, of understanding how power works, and then using that knowledge responsibly.
Yeah, it's about using your powers for good, not for evil.
Exactly. And I think that's something that everyone can benefit from, whether you're a CEO, a parent, a teacher, whatever.
But we all have influence in some way, shape, or form.
Right. And the more we understand about how influence works, the better equipped we are to make a positive impact on the world.
Well said. I think this deep dive has been really eye-opening.
I agree. It's definitely made me think about leadership in a whole new way.
Me too. And I hope it's done the same for you, our listener. Because at the end of the day, leadership isn't just about power, it's about service.
It's about using your influence to make the world a better place, even if it's just in your own little corner of it.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Machiavellian leadership, I want to leave you with this final thought. The video we explored today argues that power is never truly possessed, but rather constantly negotiated and maintained. How does this perspective change your understanding of leadership, both in your own life and in the world around you? If, as Machiavelli suggests, leadership is a constant dance with emotions, what are the ethical implications of using psychology so strategically? Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.